Absolutely. Here's scene 1 expanded to around 1,000 words, keeping the story immersive and detailed. Dash dash dash. The lobby of the luxury New York hotel was bright and grand, its high ceilings reflecting crystal chandeliers that cast sparkling patterns across polished marble floors. Doormen in crisp uniforms opened doors for arriving guests, and the faint scent of fresh flowers mingled with the aroma of rich coffee from the adjoining cafe. The scene should have felt inviting, but for Li Wei, it was suffocating. Li had been traveling for nearly 18 hours, leaving Beijing at dawn, navigating layovers and delays, enduring cramped airplane seats, and now battling jet lag. Yet, despite the fatigue, he had maintained his impeccable appearance. His dark tailored suit was perfectly pressed, his shoes shined, and his hair neatly combed. He was, by any standard, a man accustomed to attention, to respect, to efficiency. And yet, as he approached the front desk, he felt a strange, creeping sense of unease. "Good afternoon," he said politely, his Mandarin accented English smooth and precise. "I have a reservation under the name Li Wei." The clerk behind the desk barely looked up. She typed slowly, her eyes scanning the screen as though performing a tedious task she'd rather avoid. "Sir, we need your confirmation number." Her tone was polite but detached, the kind of politeness that carries the subtle weight of disinterest. Li reached into his pocket and retrieved the printed confirmation, extending it toward her. "Here, I booked this 2 weeks ago." Her fingers lingered over the keyboard, pausing and hesitating as if the computer had suddenly become difficult. It seems your reservation isn't showing in our system," she said at last, her voice flat, almost rehearsed. Li's brow furrowed. "That's impossible. I booked through the hotel website directly. Please check again." Another clerk from across the desk glanced over, muttering under his breath, "Maybe he's lying. You know, foreign guests sometimes." He stopped mid-sentence when he realized Li was looking at him, but the glance alone was enough. Li felt the sharp sting of prejudice, an invisible barrier he could neither step over nor ignore. Hours, or it felt like hours, passed in a blur of bureaucracy and passive-aggressive gestures. Each employee he approached seemed to invent a reason not to help him. A bellhop shrugged when he asked for assistance with his luggage, muttering something about being too busy. Another receptionist suggested, vaguely, that perhaps he should call the booking website again, as if the problem was his fault. Li maintained his composure, though irritation simmered beneath the surface. He was used to people accommodating his status, not avoiding it. He wandered down the hallways of the lobby, hoping for some clue, some kind of assistance that would make this ordeal bearable. Even the concierge, who typically exuded confidence and professionalism, barely glanced in his direction. The slight nod he received felt perfunctory, a courtesy without intent. Li realized with a sinking heart that no one in this hotel seemed willing, or perhaps able, to acknowledge him as a guest, let alone a person. Eventually, hunger and exhaustion drove him toward the cafe adjacent to the lobby. The interior was warm, the muted hum of conversation and clinking cups offering a rare sense of normalcy. Guests sipped lattes, tapped on laptops, and chatted softly, oblivious to the storm of frustration swirling inside Li Wei. He found an empty seat near the corner, a spot where he could observe without being observed. As he sat down, he noticed the stares. Some patrons looked away quickly, discomfort flickering across their faces as they registered his presence. Others whispered to companions, their eyes lingering a little too long. Li felt their curiosity, their assumptions, their judgment. He was a stranger here, a man whose appearance and accent immediately marked him as different. He had expected the usual blend of curiosity and polite service, but this was something else entirely, a pervasive, dismissive coldness that seemed to seep into every interaction he had attempted that day. Then she appeared. Monique. She was young, perhaps in her mid-20s, her uniform crisp yet unassuming. Her skin was dark and radiant, her hair pulled back to reveal a face that was warm and expressive. There was a natural grace to her movements as she weaved through the tables, balancing trays with practiced ease. When she reached his table, she tilted her head slightly, a gesture of curiosity and recognition combined, and spoke, "Nin hao, Li Shansheng. Wo qi bang nin ma." Li froze. Mandarin. Perfect, unhesitant Mandarin. It was as if the air around him had shifted, as if someone had opened a door that had been firmly shut all day. His heart, fatigued and anxious, skipped a beat. Relief washed over him, sudden and profound. No one understands me here," he muttered to himself, almost in disbelief. He nodded quickly, words catching in his throat. Yes, you can help me." Monique smiled, her eyes lighting up with genuine warmth. She guided him through the menu, asking questions about his preferences, making suggestions with a knowledge that seemed instinctual rather than learned. Her tone was patient, kind, and devoid of any condescension. Lee realized he hadn't felt such ease in hours, perhaps days. The tension that had wrapped itself around his shoulders like a heavy cloak began to melt. As she listened attentively, noting his preferences and clarifying details, Lee observed her closely. She was attentive without being intrusive, confident without demanding attention. Other patrons glanced their way, curiosity flickering in their eyes, but Lee barely noticed. He was focused entirely on this unexpected connection, this bridge between his world and the strange, distant world of the cafe. He realized then that his wealth, his influence, and his status had meant nothing in the face of indifference and subtle bias. He had expected recognition, perhaps a modicum of respect, but he had been met with avoidance and doubt. Monique, however, had broken through that invisible barrier. She saw him as a person, not a problem, not a headline, not a stereotype. For the first time that day, Lee felt a flicker of hope, a sense that perhaps not all was lost. In a city of millions, in a world that often seemed impersonal and indifferent, one person had chosen to see him. And that choice made all the difference. As Monique prepared to take his order, Lee sat back in his chair, allowing himself a small, almost imperceptible smile. It was a fragile smile, tentative yet sincere, marking the first moment in hours that he felt truly recognized, truly understood. The hotel, the staff, the city itself, all of it seemed to fade slightly, leaving only this small oasis of connection in a bustling, indifferent world. Lee knew, deep down, that the day was far from over, that there were still challenges and frustrations ahead. But for this brief, unexpected moment, he allowed himself to believe that someone cared enough to help him. And that realization, simple though it was, carried a weight far greater than any luxury or status could provide. This expansion focuses on internal thoughts, tension, prejudice, and the detailed environment, giving the scene more emotional depth and immersion. If you want, I can also expand scene 2 to 1,000 words with the same level of detail and emotional depth. Do you want me to do that? Next, here's scene 2 expanded to around 1,000 words, maintaining the immersive tone and emotional depth. Monique led Lee Wei to a small, quiet corner of the cafe, a table tucked near the wide glass windows that looked out over the bustling streets of New York. The late afternoon sunlight slanted across the room, casting a warm golden glow on the polished wooden floor. The city outside was alive, yellow cabs honking, pedestrians hurrying along slick sidewalks, umbrellas bobbing in the occasional drizzle, but inside, the cafe felt like a gentle cocoon, removed from the chaos beyond the glass. Would you like me to get you a menu, or do you prefer tea first? Monique asked in Mandarin, her tone light, casual, yet attentive. There was no pretension in her voice, no hint that she was catering to someone wealthy, she spoke as if she were talking to a friend. Lee shook his head, a faint smile forming on his lips. Tea, green tea, if you have it, he said, grateful for the familiarity of his native language. The sound of Mandarin eased the knots of tension in his chest. For hours, he had wandered through a city that seemed to treat him as an outsider, and now, at last, there was a bridge, a simple, human connection that made him feel recognized. Monique nodded and rose gracefully to prepare the tea. Her movements were precise yet unhurried, a reflection of both skill and care. She returned moments later, carrying a delicate porcelain cup filled with steaming green tea, the fragrance soft and soothing. She placed it before him gently, a small bow of respect accompanying the gesture. Lee lifted the cup, inhaling the aroma, and a sense of calm washed over him. He had expected the hotel to provide comfort, but none had come, not until now, in this unexpected corner of the cafe, with this young waitress who had greeted him in his own language. You know, he said quietly, almost to himself, you've made this city feel a little smaller, a little warmer. The words were unusual for him, he rarely spoke so openly about feelings or vulnerability. But something about Monique's presence made it easy to speak, easy to admit the fatigue and frustration that had built up over the day. Monique shrugged modestly, a small smile playing on her lips. Sometimes all someone needs is to be greeted in their own language. It's a bridge, that's all, she said simply, her words carrying a quiet wisdom. Lee considered this. In a world of towering skyscrapers, luxury cars, and billion-dollar deals, a simple greeting, spoken with understanding and kindness, had made all the difference. His wealth and status had meant nothing in the cold, indifferent hallways of the hotel, yet here, in this small cafe, he felt seen. Truly seen. They spoke quietly, in Mandarin, as if the language itself had a power to create intimacy and understanding. Monique asked about his journey, his preferences for food and drink, even small details about the city. Lee answered, correcting a few words here and there with a soft chuckle, surprised at how easily the conversation flowed. For the first time that day, he felt fully present, not weighed down by suspicion, indifference, or the constant need to assert his importance. Other patrons glanced occasionally, curiosity flickering in their eyes, but Lee ignored them. The city outside, the noise, the rush, the judgment, seemed distant, irrelevant. In this corner of the cafe, he could breathe. He could speak freely, laugh quietly at small missteps in language, and even allow himself a rare moment of vulnerability. Monique returned several times, checking in with gentle attentiveness. Each time, her demeanor was the same, calm, composed, warm. She never rushed him, never looked bored, never hinted that his wealth or appearance mattered in her decision to care for him. And that, more than anything, struck Lee. In a world that often measured people by their bank accounts, she measured him by his humanity. He realized something profound. Kindness was powerful, more powerful than any luxury or status could ever be. One small act, a greeting in Mandarin, a patient smile, a careful attention to his needs, had transformed his day. It had turned frustration into relief, alienation into connection, and exhaustion into a quiet, unexpected joy. As he sipped his tea, he felt the warmth spread through him, a comfort deeper than physical warmth. Monique watched him with a professional, yet gentle gaze, her presence steadying, almost grounding. Lee found himself sharing small stories, about Beijing, about his family, about the brief moments of solitude he found in a life filled with obligations. Each story was met with genuine interest, thoughtful nods, and sometimes laughter, making him feel, astonishingly, like an equal rather than a client. Eventually, the cafe grew busier as evening approached. The sunlight waned, replaced by the glow of streetlights and the warm artificial lighting of the interior. Patrons came and went, but Lee did not feel the pressure of attention. Here, he had found a space where the world's judgment and assumptions could not touch him. Monique moved with quiet efficiency among the new arrivals, yet she never once neglected him, never allowed the hustle of the cafe to intrude upon their connection. Lee put down his cup and regarded her thoughtfully. You've helped me more than anyone else in this city today, Monique. I don't know how to thank you, he said sincerely, his voice low but earnest. She smiled, brushing a curl from her forehead, her eyes meeting his with a calm assurance. You already did. Just enjoy your tea, she replied, her words simple but carrying a weight he could not ignore. There was no need for grand gestures, no need for formal gratitude. Her kindness was enough, and it was transformative. Lee leaned back, letting the city hum around him, allowing himself a moment of quiet reflection. He realized that he had spent much of his life navigating worlds of power, influence, and wealth, but few people had ever treated him with this level of authenticity. He had assumed that status could protect him from indifference or loneliness, yet here he was, learning that even the most minor gestures of understanding could bridge vast divides. He glanced out the window at the city, the lights twinkling like distant stars. In a metropolis of millions, he had encountered countless strangers who had ignored him, doubted him, or dismissed him outright. Yet, one person, one unexpected, extraordinary person, had seen him. And in that recognition, he found a sense of belonging he had not realized he was seeking. The tea had cooled slightly, yet its warmth remained in his hands, a quiet reminder of comfort and human connection. Lee knew that the day's frustrations were far from over, that business meetings, travel, and obligations awaited him. But for now, he allowed himself to linger in this rare oasis of understanding. He allowed himself to feel the relief, the gratitude, and even the joy that came from being truly acknowledged. As Monique moved to tend other customers, Li Wei remained seated, drinking slowly, absorbing the calm she had brought into his day. In that moment, he understood something fundamental. The greatest power lay not in wealth, not in influence, not in status, but in the simple ability to see, hear, and acknowledge another person. In a city where no one else had helped him, one person had. And that single act of kindness had changed everything. Lee finished his tea, leaving the cup gently on the table. He looked at Monique, offering a nod of gratitude, a silent acknowledgement of the difference she had made. She returned the gesture with a small smile, as if to say, sometimes that's all it takes. And in that quiet exchange, Li Wei realized that he had discovered something far more valuable than any business deal or luxury hotel stay. He had discovered the extraordinary impact of human connection, and it had arrived in the form of a simple, heartfelt greeting in his own language. This version expands the scene to about 1,000 words, deepening Li Wei's internal reflections, Monique's actions, the cafe's atmosphere, and the emotional tension and release. If you want, I can also create detailed cinematic image prompts for both scenes next, so you could visualize them as if for a film storyboard. Do you want me to do that?